The Indian Olympic Association has continued the recent rather worrying trend of actually coming under the purview of a committee of administrators, or a CoA for short. Now obviously this is something that Indian sports fans would at this point be familiar with as to how exactly this happens and why this happens. However, in this case it is doubly worrisome because remember, the Indian Olympic Association is India's representative Olympic sport related body. So the simple fact of the matter is, if it is now coming under the purview of a committee of administrators, it really does mean that there's a lot of things that actually convinced, in this case the Delhi High Court, that there is enough evidence needed that a cleaning of house is in order, and that is why there is now a committee of administrators in place to actually clean up the house of the Indian Olympic Association. What is worrisome, however, and something that we are going to touch on, is the fact that this might not be the last time such a move happens. Hello everyone and welcome back to Sports Today. My name is Shane Dias, and today we are going to look at why it is that the Indian Olympic Association has come under the purview of Committee of Administrators, the reasons for that happening, what exactly would be the remit to actually sort things out, and why we believe that there is a chance that this won't be the last time you're seeing this happen to a national sports federation. Now, first off, let's actually look at the composition of this three-member CoA. So obviously, the three main members, as you can see on the left side of your screen, it is of course Justice Anil R. Dave, there is Dr. S.Y. Qureshi, and there is Vikas Farouk. These are the three co-members of the Committee of Administrators who have been tasked with coming up with or cleaning up the Indian Olympic Association. Now, why exactly this is the case, we're going to come to in a bit, but remember these three names, they're very important names. They are going to be the three-member CoA who will of course now be tasked with the job of actually coming up with a new constitution or ensuring that regulations which are there according to the National Sports Code are met by the IOA. Now these three sports people, of course all three familiar names to you, Abhinav Bindra, Anju Bobby Judge and Bombayla Devi, are all three not officially part of the CoA as such, but they are there on a consultancy basis for the CoA. So they're going to be there to help out the CoA with shaping the future of the Indian Olympic Association. So that is their major role. They're not officially part of the CoA, but they are there on a consultancy basis, and their opinions and their help will be sorted as and when the CoA feels it is necessary. Now, moving on to what exactly led to this to begin with, and again, this is a tale that you would be familiar with if you're an Indian sports fan who's followed this process happen before, because again, as I mentioned, this has happened before in the past as well. So one of the major things that was seen as a talking point was of course that there was no real proper set term for the office bearers, and there was inconsistency in terms of the type of voting rights that existed in the Indian Olympic Organization. And then to make things worse, it's somewhat a continuation of the first point. You had posts like a life president being employed. Now again, you note for a fact that for such boards or for such organizations, it's often an election based process that determines who's going to be heading it next. So a life president in that sense makes no sense. And of course there was also no set maximum term for office bearers. So what would happen more often than not is that one person would consistently keep getting elected again and again. And of course, if you are familiar with the National Sports Code, generally speaking, the term for presidents or any office bearers is no more than 3. So in that sense, the fact that there was no set maximum term was in itself a violation of the sporting code, and this, and among the other things that we talked about, is one of the reasons why the Delhi High Court saw fit to intervene and put this CoA in place. In fact, speaking of the Delhi High Court, the language which they used to actually admonish the IOA, it was anything but subtle, and in fact they were very harsh on the IOA. The two major talking points which I thought were, one of the things was that they talked about why exactly it is they felt that it was necessary that they intervene and put in place a committee of administrators. as they mentioned, is that the history of persistent recalcitrance. In case you're wondering what that term means, it basically means a behavior where you don't actually follow the rules or follow what is being told to you. So again, this is not a new issue with the IOA. They have often been told to ensure that their constitution and their functioning falls in line with the National Sports Code. They haven't done that for a very long time, and finally the chickens are coming home to roost, to put it that way. So you are seeing that their behavior in this sense, in terms of not actually abiding to the sports code, has been noted, and that's why this the Delhi High Court says that it makes it imperative that the IOA is now put in charge of a CoA, who will then in fact actually clean up the entire functioning and ensure that in the future there's elections held properly, that there's set terms, that the constitution for the IOA is set in accordance to the National Sports Code. And in fact, for me at least, what was the more interesting thing is what they said afterwards. In fact, if you go through the entire judgment, it's a pretty long it's a pretty long speech in that sense. But one of the interesting things they mentioned, when they said very clearly that they are directing governments, whether it be the central government, whether it be state governments, they're directing governments to not actually grant any kind of recognition, be it monetary or be it any sort of help or recognition to any sort of NSF. And NSF, by the way, is the National Sports Federation that doesn't comply with the National Sports Code. So what this is hinting at is that it's in my sense, in a way at least, it's a way of telling other national sports federations that look, you clean up your act, you ensure that you are following the National Sports Code, or not only will you be devoid of any kind of aid, be it monetary aid or be it recognition from governments or anything of the sort, but that the courts might actually decide to intervene in that and put in place a CoA as well. So again, you'd see that this is something that's actually very, very true, because again, the term CoA first started coming into the conscious of Indian sports fans when, of course, there was an intervention from the Supreme Court for the BCCI. But since then, we've seen it happen with other federations as well. In fact, in recent memory, you've had Hockey India that has come under the scanner. You've had the IOA has just come under the scanner, and of course, most notably, you have the AIFF, or the All India Football Federation. They too ended up getting put in the hands of a CoA, and in fact, that third-party interference was what actually led to them ending up copying a ban from FIFA. So, the simple fact of the matter is, courts are taking recognition of the fact that a lot of these sports federations are not actually following the due processes, and that they are not very hesitant at this point to actually sit there and intervene and ensure that the things are in order as far as in sports is concerned, and that they will do what is necessary to ensure that these federations are run in an orderly and a democratically compliant manner, and that their constitutions and that their functioning is regulated by the National Sports Code. So obviously it's a bit of an interesting situation, and obviously there would be people wondering what exactly the future holds, but for our sake and for the sake of Indian sport, we would naturally hope that the CoA does in fact take cognizance of the situation immediately and puts together a good constitution, ensures that elections are held, and that the federation functions in accordance with the National Sports Code, so that there are no real problems which crop up in the future. What do you guys think? Tell me, is this something that has been long overdue in Indian sport? Do you think that more such decisions should be taken to ensure that the way Indian sport is run is more regulated and cleaned up? Do let me know in the comments, and please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and of course tap the bell icon so that you know when it is you have to go, when we are going live or when we're uploading a new video for you guys. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram as well. Thank you all so much for joining us. As always, I've been Shane Reyes, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon. But bye-bye for now.